Hi friends, let's talk about 5 of my favourite fantasy series. These are not exclusively my top 5 fantasy series, these are just 5 series that I really enjoy and that I want to talk about today and hopefully encourage some of you guys to pick up and read as well. First, let's start off with this one here. So this is The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. So there are 2 arcs to this series. There's the first 4 books and then there are a sequel trilogy which take place a few hundred years after the events in the first 4 books. This is your very classic sword and sorcery, chosen one trope. It's a Viking-esque setting where all of a sudden these signs start to appear across the land, a land that has been peaceful for quite some time but has known war in the past. We start to see giants stirring in the north, great worms moving across the land, and standing stones weeping blood. All of these signs showing that the time has come for the fated battle between the black sun and the chosen one, the bright star. It's a battle where angels and demons will collide to reshape the land in either darkness or in goodness. But there is a twist to this story. I'm not going to give it away, but it is not what you expect. So if you hear that summary and you go, oh, that sounds very much like your classic chosen farm boy trope, it very much isn't. This is a really fantastic way of subverting that trope, and I really enjoyed what John Gwynne did with this series. He had me really on the edge of my seat. I picked up this book first because I'd heard of other people reading it and heard that it was good, and then I just read them all back to back. I didn't resurface from this world until I'd finished it, and it left me in a reading slump for ages afterwards just because I couldn't stop thinking about these characters and I just wanted more. It's a multi-perspective book where you mainly follow Corbin, who is the chosen one, but you also get to read from the perspective of some of the villains and some other characters that are dotted around different areas of the world, and you really get that lovely sensation of them converging together towards the end of the series, where you can really feel that hype building, where you're like, oh my goodness, all these characters that I know what they've been up to, but they don't know each other. They're about to all meet and it's going to be this big cataclysmic event. It's just masterfully done. And I think where John Gwynne shines the most, not just in his really accessible storytelling, is also with his combat scenes. John Gwynne writes combat the way the Battle of Helm's Deep is filmed in the Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. If you enjoy that level of cinematic combat and action scenes, this will absolutely be the series for you. You can hear it and see it and even smell it. It's just described in such fantastic detail that it all just leaps to life off the page. And I adore the way John Gwynne writes his combat scenes. I don't think I've ever read anything like it, to be perfectly honest. And I would absolutely recommend this series to everybody, but go into it knowing that you will invest hours and hours of your time into this series and you will want to do nothing other than read these books. So you can thank me later when you have a great time. So next up is another one that you should not go into lightly, because this one will steal your soul also, and that is The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. So this is obviously book 1 of the Farseer trilogy, which starts with Assassin's Apprentice. This series is 18 books long if you count the 2, not novellas, like one novella and a short story collection, which I count them, but it features 4 trilogies and a quartet as well, and this being the first. You follow in this series Fitz, as he's a young boy who is an illegitimate son of the king-in-waiting chivalry, who then abdicates from that role when it becomes public knowledge that he has sired a child out of wedlock. And you watch Fitz become a king's man, and he essentially is an assassin for the crown. But more than that, he is a magic user, and he uses 2 types of magic. The magic of his line, which is the skill, which is said to be the Farseer magic of kings, but he also uses the wit magic, which allows him to bond to an animal and to be able to communicate with animals on a much deeper level. And that helps you to be introduced to Night Eyes, who is the best fictional animal I have ever read in my life. And when you get to the Night Eyes parts of this book, you will just be swept away. Robin Hobb is more of a character-driven storyteller. The plot is slow to develop, but really worth the payoff, because you spend so much time with your characters that you really feel like you get to know them by the end of it, and they're enough to carry the story, because true life isn't full of plot all the time. It's about the character development, which this is a masterful character study, and I recommend this series to everybody. Even if you only read the first trilogy, you'll gain so much from it. But I promise you, if you read the first trilogy and then you move on to the Live Ship Traders, which is trilogy number 2, you won't look back. You will just then be a complete Realm of the Elderlings convert, and you will march your way through those books and be unable to put them down. Next up is something a little different. I've never read any fantasy like this before, but I have read the whole series, and that is Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. This is essentially set in almost like a Victorian era setting in terms of technology and societal norms and conventions, and it follows Lady Trent, who is a naturalist. These are her journals of her reflecting back on her life, and she was the first respected female naturalist who studied dragons, because yes, this is essentially Victorian Europe with dragons. What more could you really want? It's a science fan's dream, to be honest, because she goes into a lot of detail about the actual naturalism of these dragons and their anatomy, their physiology, and how they function as creatures. But you also follow Lady Trent's quite scandalous career over time, especially in the society she lives in, where she pushes against those societal norms that say that academia is reserved for men, adventuring is reserved for men, and it's absolutely not. And she proves that time and time again as she becomes infamous throughout her career as this intrepid adventurer who scorns societal norms to forge her own path. This is mainly a 5-book series, but there is a sequel single book which follows her granddaughter, which you don't have to read that one, but I just thought it was a really fun extra addition to the world, and it's just a phenomenal series. If you like dragons and you quite like a feminist pitched story, this will definitely be for you. I loved this. It was just fantastic. Next up, we have The Bear and the Nightingale, which I have talked about a little short as one of my favourite Frosty reads to go to. This is a trilogy by Catherine Arden. It is a completed trilogy, and every single book is truly lovely. They are set in kind of a Russian style fantasy, very much a Siberian story. It features a lot of Russian mythology and folklore, and you follow Vasya, who is a young girl who is absolutely entranced by the folklore of her country. But not only that, she can see the creatures that these stories are about. They are little creatures that live in the house, in the woods, the little spirits that people pray to and leave small offerings to. But more than that, she has a destiny, because she essentially is a chosen one almost. Not everybody can sense these spirits. In fact, she's very much alone in that. And she ends up in this push and pull between the reality of what's going on with a revolution and a very tumultuous religious time within her world, and what's going on in the spirit realm, because that is also a place of deep unrest. There is also a romance element to this later down the line, which becomes a very God versus mortal style romance, and they're just so lyrical and so atmospheric. If you're a fan of things like The Name of the Wind and you love that style of storytelling, you will absolutely love The Bear and the Nightingale. I had to wait for these books to be released, and I was not patient about my waiting. I really just wanted to find out what happened next and find out what was in store for Vasya, because you have this sense of doom all the way through. And I'm not going to tell you whether the doom comes true or not, but there's very much this urgency to the story. All the while it's lyrical and slower paced, you can still feel the rushing onslaught of her destiny. So if that sounds like something you would enjoy, please do pick this up, because it is absolutely a fantastic trilogy. The final series I want to talk to you about is another trilogy. and that is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I feel like this trilogy needs no introduction because it's very highly applauded in fantasy circles because of how groundbreaking it was. This is a really thought-provoking trilogy where you read book 1 and you're a bit like, I don't really know what's going on here, but I'm enjoying the characters. And then you get to the end of book 1 and everything just goes click, click, click into place. And you go, this is a work of genius. And then you fly through books 2 and 3 because you're just absolutely gripped by the plot and the inevitability of what is going on. This features a really unique magic system as well called orogeny, where there are certain individuals who can harness geokinetic energy to diffuse or create earthquakes and essentially almost control the motions of tectonic plates and how that impacts the world around them, so they can create a disaster or they can divert one, but sometimes in diverting a disaster they create one elsewhere. They are not that highly respected, these magic users. In certain circles they are reviled, and then in others they are used rather than revered, and most of that comes from fear. So you start out in this story following 3 characters. One, a mother who has lost her child and is in pursuit of her. Another is a young woman embarking right at the start of her career as an employed orogener. And then the third is as a young girl who has been snatched from her family life because she is one of these magic users and has been taken away to a school to harness her ability. It is a bit jarring because it is told as a second person narrative, but you very quickly get used to that style. It's only jarring for the first couple of chapters, so don't let that put you off, because I absolutely would recommend this to any fantasy fan or any sci-fi fan. It's just the most unique storytelling I've ever read, and I feel like it has so many layers to it that go beyond the story that it tells. It is about race, it is about politics, it is about oppression and about discrimination, but it's told in a very fresh narrative style and really does make you think about what sacrifice truly means for hope and for the betterment of the people around you. So if that doesn't sound too bleak, give this a read and I promise you will not regret it. And just let me know what you thought of any of those series. If you've read them already, let me know what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy. And if you have any recommendations for me off the back of those, please just let me know in the comments. Feel free to like and subscribe if you have enjoyed this video. I post on Thursdays and Sundays for long form content with shorts kind of sprinkled in between. So feel free to stick around and let me know what you thought. Happy reading, guys. Bye.